A story about trust, kindness, and integrity. The morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, casting golden lines across the countertop as I stirred a pot of oatmeal. It was a quiet Thursday, the kind that made our small suburban home feel extra peaceful. My name is Emily Parker, and for the last 8 years, I've been married to James, a hardworking, good-natured man who runs a construction company with his business partner, Michael Harris. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was steady and kind, built on love, honesty, and shared dreams. James had always been the ambitious one, the kind who couldn't sit still for long. His passion for his company often kept him late at the office, but I understood. After all, we were building something together, even if in different ways. That morning, James rushed around as usual, trying to balance his phone on his shoulder while buttoning his shirt. "Honey, could you grab my folder from the counter?" he called. I smiled, handing it over. "Another big meeting today?" "Yeah," he said with a sigh. "The new housing project is taking up more time than I thought. Michael and I are meeting with the investors again." Michael, his business partner, was someone I'd always respected. I'd met him several times at company dinners and barbecues. He was polite, well-spoken, and seemed grounded. He wasn't the overly charming type, but the kind of man who earned respect quietly. "Don't forget to eat," I reminded James as he slipped on his jacket. He smiled. "You always say that, because you never do," I teased. He laughed, gave me a quick kiss, and hurried out the door, calling out, "Love you." The house fell into its usual mid-morning calm. The sound of birds filled the air outside, and the gentle hum of the washing machine created a comforting background rhythm. I spent most of my morning cleaning, sorting laundry, and planning dinner, a slow-roasted chicken with rosemary and lemon. Around noon, as I was wiping the counters, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Michael. Greater than Michael. "Hey Emily, sorry to bother you. James mentioned he left a few documents at home that I'll need for tomorrow's meeting. Mind if I drop by and pick them up?" I hesitated for a moment. I wasn't expecting anyone, and though I didn't mind visitors, the idea of being alone with one of James's colleagues made me pause. But then again, this was Michael, a man I'd known for years, someone James trusted completely. "Greater than me? Sure. Come by any time before 2. I'll be here." "Greater than Michael. Thanks. I'll be there in about half an hour." I made a fresh pot of coffee, partly to be polite and partly because the rain clouds rolling in made the afternoon feel cozier. By the time the knock came, the drizzle had already begun. When I opened the door, Michael stood there, his black umbrella glistening with raindrops. He wore a gray shirt, sleeves rolled up slightly, and carried a leather briefcase. "Hey, Emily," he said with a friendly smile. "Sorry about the weather, didn't plan for the rain." "No worries," I said, stepping aside. "Come in before you catch a cold." The warmth of the house seemed to lift the dampness from the air. I motioned toward the dining table. "The folders James left are on the counter." "Coffee." He smiled gratefully. "I won't say no to that." As I poured him a cup, I noticed the faint tension in his posture, the kind that comes from long weeks and too little rest. "Tough week?" I asked lightly. "You could say that," he replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "Between deadlines and my mom's health, I've barely been home." "Oh, I'm sorry. Is she all right?" "She's been in and out of the hospital for a few months," he said quietly. "Heart issues. It's been rough." There was sincerity in his voice, the kind that only comes when someone's trying to stay strong. I set his coffee down and said, "You don't have to pretend everything's fine. It's okay to admit you're tired." He gave a small laugh, the kind that carried both relief and exhaustion. "I think I am." We sat at the table, the rain tapping softly on the windows. He spread out the papers, double-checking signatures, while I listened as he talked about the business. He and James had built everything from scratch, two friends who started with a single client and a dream. "James talks about you all the time," I said. "He says you're the brains of the operation." Michael chuckled. "I'm not sure about that. He's the one who dreams big. I'm just the guy who makes sure those dreams don't bankrupt us." We both laughed. The conversation flowed easily, filled with light moments and gentle humor. But beneath it, I sensed something deeper, a man who carried a lot of weight on his shoulders. When the rain grew heavier, the power flickered briefly. The sound of thunder rolled across the sky, and I instinctively glanced toward the window. "Storm's worse than I thought," I said. "Yeah," Michael replied, looking out. "Maybe I'll wait it out a bit before heading back." "Of course," I said. "No rush." We moved to the living room, and I lit a candle for some extra light. The soft glow filled the space, and for a while, we sat quietly, listening to the rain. It felt peaceful, two people finding calm amid life's chaos. After a few minutes, Michael spoke again, his voice quieter. "You know, I admire how you and James handle everything. The business, your home, the balance, it's rare these days." I smiled. "We've had our ups and downs, but we made a promise early on, to talk about everything. No secrets, no assumptions." He nodded. "That's what makes it work. Communication." We talked a while longer, about life, choices, and the strange way time changes people. The storm began to fade, replaced by the gentle sound of dripping water. When he finally stood to leave, I walked him to the door. "Thanks for the coffee, Emily. And, for listening. Anytime," I said genuinely. "Take care of yourself, Michael. And your mom." He paused for a moment, looking thoughtful. "You're kind. The world could use more of that." He smiled, waved, and stepped into the fading drizzle. That evening, when James came home, he looked tired but happy. "Hey, honey, long day, but we landed the client." "That's great," I said, hugging him. "Michael stopped by earlier to grab the contracts." "Oh good," he said, taking off his jacket. "He's been stretched thin lately. I need to make sure he takes a break soon." As we sat down for dinner, I told James about our conversation, about Michael's mom, the storm, and how he seemed worn down. James listened carefully, then said, "You know, that's just like you, finding time to care about everyone. It's what people need sometimes," I said softly. Over the next few weeks, life continued as usual. But something subtle had changed. The atmosphere between James, Michael, and me felt more connected. There was trust, mutual respect, and a quiet understanding that honesty mattered more than appearances. When Michael's mother recovered, he came by again with flowers to thank me for the support. I didn't do anything extraordinary, but he said it reminded him that there were still people in the world who cared without expecting anything in return. Months passed. Our company grew. We hosted barbecues and dinners, where laughter replaced stress, and friendship became the real foundation of success. One evening, under the warm light of our backyard, Michael raised his glass. "To good friends," he said. "To people who remind us that trust isn't outdated." James clinked his glass with ours. "To that, and to never letting storms make us forget who we are." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I looked around at the people we'd grown close to, at the life we'd built, and realized something profound. Sometimes, the most meaningful moments aren't grand or dramatic. They're quiet, simple acts of understanding that ripple through lives in ways we don't always see. That rainy afternoon, when I was home alone, could have been just another ordinary day. But it became something more, a lesson in trust, empathy, and the beauty of genuine human connection. It reminded me that kindness is never wasted, and that even when we least expect it, goodness finds its way to our door. And that's the truth of it. No scandal, no drama, just a simple, honest story about how integrity still matters, even in small moments.